Being a business owner, whether you are just starting out, a fledgling, now that's not easy to say, or an experienced business owner who has been around the block, it can be a really lonely journey. And if you are a solopreneur wearing all the hats, or an ambitious business owner wearing many, you are still the one leading your business, and it can feel tiresome seeking for the answers you need. Information overload is real, and it can be daunting in the ever-changing world and environment that we are existing and working in. That's why I created these conversations with my go-to experts. If we've not met before, my name is Lindsay Burden, and I'm an intuitive business coach, and I work with my clients, inspiring, guiding, and motivating them to create wildly successful businesses and magnificent lives. But we're not here to talk about me. I am super excited because today I get to speak to you, Laura. Now, before we get started, Laura, I need to. So, Laura Macarthy. I knew
Yeah.
I would have to check that. Right. Let me introduce everyone to Laura. So, Laura, I love this. Laura is a self-confessed business numbers nerd. And by the way, we all need these people in our life. Converted from a business owner to a qualified certified bookkeeper. Now, I want to talk a little bit before I let you speak, Laura. I want to talk a little bit about Now Accounting Services. So you are a team of 6 qualified number nerds. I love that
Yeah.
they're number nerds, offering digital accounting services to small businesses. Be they. That doesn't sound right. Whether they are solo traders, owner-managed businesses, or larger businesses that need an accounts team but are not ready to recruit a full accounts department. You basically pick up the stuff. I'm reading this because it's just making me smile. You basically pick up the stuff business owners typically hate, but you love. So we're talking self-assessment, payroll, VAT returns, CIS returns, and bookkeeping, the stuff that makes you smile and the rest of us cry. I loved that because I read it and I was like, oh, that's so all of us who don't know numbers. Plus, you offer training. What's not to love?
Absolutely. Yeah, quite.
So, where is this journey? How did you get to this place? Tell us a little bit about that before we get started.
Well, it started, gosh, must be coming up to 20 years ago. And it started purely by chance. And it started by me saying the words, how hard can it be? As a result of my ex-husband's had a business, family business, and their bookkeeper left very suddenly. And I had moved down to Hampshire to be with him, and I'd left my job to do that. This quandary came up about not having a bookkeeper, and I just thought, oh, it can't be that hard. How can it be? I'll do it. So, well, they were like, brilliant, you do it. And it was really hard. It was really, really hard. But I fell in love with it. I just fell in love with it. I don't know. It just ticked some boxes that I didn't even realize needed ticking. I had a very happy, satisfied career up until that point. I'd been in sort of big corporates doing project management and customer services. So numbers weren't anywhere in I thought, my future or my past. So I just picked it up and thought, actually, I really like this. Found it really challenging. And the main thing I really enjoyed was the fact that you're the nuts and bolts of the business.
I like that. Take
Mm.
down that note, everyone. Your numbers are the nuts and bolts.
They are, they absolutely are. And I firmly believe that you can have the best idea in the world. You can be the strongest, wildest entrepreneurial person in the world. But if you do not know what your numbers are doing, and you do not have all those nuts and bolts in place holding you together, you're going to run out of cash before before you run out of ideas. And the moment you run out of cash, that's where the business collapses. So you kind of need to have someone in your business that's either helping you or supporting you, or you're doing it yourself, to know where your pennies and pounds are. And that's what I really enjoy. Maybe it's a bit of a control thing. I like having a control of something and being able to input into decisions and make decisions. And it's just gelled with me. And I'm a bit of a wanderlust. I don't really mind where I live. Like if someone said, do you want to move tomorrow? I go, yeah, why not? And I was the same with jobs. But I've been doing this nearly 20 years and I've never wanted to change.
It's really
Ever.
interesting that you're talking about it being the nuts and bolts. And I work with so many clients who, land on my doorstep, and I can ask them, so what are the financial, goals? how are you monitoring? What are you doing? And it's not unusual for them to go, oh, I don't. I
Mm,
think women particularly are frightened of the numbers, yet they're
mm,
so powerful, aren't they?
mm.
And like I say, it is the nuts and bolts. It's how you guide your decision making in your business.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And I get that fear because I've been there myself when I was trying to pick up the reins of it. It wasn't natural and the language was crazy and I didn't understand what anyone was saying to me. I used to ring the accountant who was lovely and he used to sit there and I used to ask him a question and he used to sit there and say back to me, debit, credit, debit, credit, debit, credit. And I used to go, oh, yeah, okay, fine. And put the phone down and go, oh, clue what any of that meant. I just didn't get it. So I totally and utterly understand the fear of a business owner sitting there hearing these words and going, I don't get it. I don't like it. I'm doing this because I'm good at marketing. I'm good at management as consultancy. I'm great at design. I'm great at coaching. I don't want this little bit over here that's niggling me in the side about money. I just don't get it and I don't like it. I get that fear completely. So, I suppose that's why I come from a slightly different angle to most bookkeepers, is I've been that person in the other position that stood there going, I don't get it, I don't like it, it makes me frightened, it makes me anxious. But I still grabbed hold of it and liked it. So I'll tell you, it took me 3 years to pass a bookkeeping exam. I am not a natural. So I work with people who are, my teams are all naturals. They get it. They talk numbers, they get it. It took me 3 years. And I'm not talking about a difficult bookkeeping exam. I'm talking about level 1 bookkeeping. 3 years it took me,
Well,
but I did.
there's so many things that are coming at me. One, thank you for your honesty, because I think that's reassuring itself. I just want to come back to something, because you mentioned the word accountant. What is the difference between a bookkeeper and an accountant? Because I think that often can be really confusing for business owners in itself.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And my humorous side would come back and say about 150 quid an hour. But the serious side of it is the bookkeeper is there to look after your day-to-day transactions. They are there to look at the detail, the minutiae, and they're there to make sure that every little penny is in the right place, in the right pot, what I would call a pot, so that at the end of any financial year, I can wrap those up with a bow, make sure they're all correct, and hand them to your accountant. The accountant takes the data, the raw data, they make it pretty, they analyze it, they interpret it, they create the accounts. They'll create either your year-end accounts or your self-assessment.
Yeah.
What we do is really look after. So I also say the big difference is we will look after the pennies, the accountant will look after the pounds.
Oh, I like that.
So, an accountant to me, if I say, oh, God, what do you want me to do with this? I've got £1.68. And the accountant will generally say, I'll write it off. And I'm like, I'm not sure I'm happy with that. I need to find that. So that is the difference. They're overseeing, they're looking at the big picture. Of course, from that big picture, they're then looking at your tax computation, how much corporation tax, how much individual tax are you paying? Whereas we're very much working underneath them, supporting them to create the data that they need.
I've got a question. I didn't know I was going to ask this. There are many accountancy practices who have bookkeepers within them.
Yeah.
From listening to what you're saying there, I think it feels to me as if there's real value in having those things separate.
I believe so. So when you have an accounting practice, you're going to get generally a bookkeeping team that are using it as a bit of a stepping stone. So anybody, an accounting practice that's worth their salt is going to bring in people who want to learn the bookkeeping skills, want to learn the cloud-based accounting, but they're generally aiming towards being an accountant. They're training to be an accountant. From our perspective, from bookkeepers, myself and I've got a team of 4 bookkeepers, then the 6th person is my business partner, who is a chartered accountant. For us 5, we're bookkeepers. We don't want to be accountants. We want to be bookkeepers. We take bookkeeping qualifications. We are members of the ICB, the Institute of Certified Bookkeepers. And within that, there's an exam suite within what we can take. But that is our talent. That is our skill. Now, a word of warning, there are people out there that, when I passed that level 1 bookkeeping, I was allowed to call myself an accountant. There's no legal protection of the word accountant. So
Wow.
I could actually go around now saying I'm an accountant. I can say what I like. But for me, there's a moral professional obligation not to say that, because I know what a chartered accountant can do, and we can't do that.
It's really good to explain that, because I think that in itself can feel quite daunting, and particularly if you're at the beginning of your journey. Do I need a bookkeeper? Do I need an accountant? It feels to me is that first step is actually, if you're not going to look after your books yourself, having that bookkeeper. And that's
Yeah.
the other thing I wanted to touch on, because I always ask everyone for a title. I always say it's a work in progress title for our talk, and it usually changes by the time I've listened back and created the notes. But you said business owner or bookkeeper. And I wanted to come back to that, because I look after my own books. Don't shoot me.
No, I'd never shoot anyone for doing that.
Don't
Ever.
shoot me. Um,
Never.
Now, there is a part of me that would say you just need to outsource that. I mean, it's fairly basic, doesn't take very long. The reason I like doing it is because it keeps me in the numbers of my business. Now, there is always a tipping point where actually it's not good use of my time, because
Yeah.
someone like yourself can do it way quicker and go, here's what you need to know, Lindsay.
Absolutely.
So that kind of brings me to that question. So, business owner or bookkeeper, do you think that well, I think the answer is yes, because as we said at the beginning, your numbers are the nuts and bolts. So you have to have that understanding. You need to be able to understand your figures, and maybe looking after your books at the beginning is a good way to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that business owner or bookkeeper, the answer to that is you can be both if you want to be.
Yeah.
The vast majority of people that I meet, the first thing they'll say is, I don't want to do it. I don't like it. I don't understand it. I hate it. I keep putting it off. I wait until I've got a week off on holiday and then I'll do all my books then. And I'm like, well, that's not holiday, is it? Because you're doing something you hate. So you can, of course, I've got clients that would love to do it and are capable of doing it. They just don't want to do it. They want to be out in the field doing what earns them money. I've got clients that still meddle, what I call meddle. So we look after some of it and they'll still meddle. And then I'll go, have you been meddling? And they'll go, yes, I have. And I'm like, well, actually, we've got to undo that because it's not quite right. So, the answer to business owner or bookkeeper is you've got to ask yourself, do I want to do it? It's like anything, it's like me, my business with HR. Do I want to do it? No, thank you, because it's not my bag. I don't understand employment law, so I've got a contractor to do it for me. And you've got to, like you yourself, you say, well, I do it because it keeps me in the numbers. Well, that's brilliant. You like doing it, so you want to do it, so you do it. Never going to argue with that, ever.
I think there's something there, though, isn't there? And you were really honest and said it took you 3 years to do that first exam. Now, if you went and spoke to my maths teachers, now I'm 56, so I doubt they're even still around. Who knows? But if you went back and talked to them, they'd go, yeah, yeah. I mean, I took in the days of O levels and
No, CSE and O levels. Yeah, yeah.
I got a U in my maths. So that'll give you some idea. I didn't even know my name on that day, obviously. I did improve slightly. But what's so interesting, the reason I wanted to bring us to that point really is, maths was not my thing. I hated it. And when my daughter or my son comes home and there's maths homework, I am back in that class.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But for some reason, well, I know what the reasons are, but at the minute I had my business, I wanted to have zero. Other platforms are available. Wanted to have, wanted to know what my numbers are, wanted to use my numbers, because there was purpose to it.
Absolutely.
But that's the message as well. I was going to say, if you were rubbish at maths at school, that doesn't mean that you're not going to be able to look after your numbers in the business. And I think I see that a lot with women. They go,
Absolutely.
I don't do maths. I don't do numbers.
Yeah, completely. I don't do maths. So I failed my maths GCSE. It took me 3 attempts to get my maths GCSE. And when I was teaching and I was interviewing students who wanted to be an accountant at 16 and they wanted to do the apprenticeship route and they came to do their first course with myself, I'd say, why do you want to go into accounting? I'm good at maths. Accounting's not maths. To a certain extent it is. There's some elements of maths management accounting which would include mathematic formulas, but accounting, particularly bookkeeping, is not maths, it's problem solving. You are getting a set, a mishmash of numbers, and then you've got to separate them out. So, you could give me two lists of numbers, and, my partner's brilliant at maths and he loves putting me in this situation and just laughing at me when I can't do it. It's like, there's two rows of numbers, add them up. And I'm like, I'll come back to you tomorrow. I'll have it done for you in a spreadsheet. I could probably tell you by looking at those numbers whether they're going to balance. So that is two very different sets of skills. There's mathematical skills, not me, problem solving skills, spotting a problem and knowing where it is me. And that is what bookkeeping is. The software these days is going to take care of all that numerical maths, what your numbers are, but the bookkeeper is going to spot the problem. And I can look at a set of financial statements and go, well, that's wrong, that shouldn't be there, what is that figure, that's not right, that's negative, it should be positive, blah, blah, blah. It's problem solving. And that is the beauty of bookkeeping. So when I was interviewing people, I said, well, I'm great at maths. That's great. I don't really care. Do you like problem solving? What do you do? If I gave you a set of puzzles to do, would you enjoy doing them? And if they go, oh my God, yeah. Yeah. I'm like, right, you're going to be a good bookkeeper. You're going to be a good accountant.
It's fascinating, isn't it? And I think there is a real shift that we need to encourage around particularly women gaining confidence in numbers,
Absolutely.
dealing
Yes.
with money.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
I'm just going back to your notes because you gave me the most incredible notes ever.
Although I'm rather disappointed they weren't in a spreadsheet now.
Yeah, but they should have been.
But the first year was that bookkeeping, how hard can it be? And I think you've explained, it doesn't have to be difficult, it doesn't have to be challenging. And we've talked about whether you want to do it, whether you don't want to do it. But the second thing you wrote down here, and I really want to jump on this, is profit does not equal cash flow. And thought I'd open the floor for you to take on that one.
And I think I put in my notes is that I learned this the very, very hard way in the credit crunch when I was in my ex-husband's business. We had a full order book. I didn't even chase money. I didn't have to chase it because there was, we were flying high, and orders were coming in. We were churning the orders out. We were getting paid. Overnight in the credit crunch, our order books were empty.
Yeah.
People stopped paying. We had a ton of stock that we'd bought in for customers. I'm talking big stock, engines for customers. We were in trouble. Yet at the end of that financial year, we showed a profit. And I was like, how is that even possible? Because I have been scrabbling around every week for however many months for cash to pay people. And, we were very open with all our suppliers. I said, I'm always going to pay you, but I might pay you a week late. But if I've paid you late that month, you'll be paid on time the next month. It was very open. But I was scrabbling around for cash. We certainly weren't paying ourselves. We were really, really struggling. And I said, how is that possible that I can sit at the end of the year and see a positive figure when I know we haven't had any cash? And that's when it suddenly hit me that actually the cash is all just about when you are getting paid. And that profit shows what's happened over that full year or full 6 months or whenever you're reviewing it. It's not telling you the detail of when that money came in.
No.
And it's not telling you the detail of who hasn't paid. Well, it will do your statements. Of course, they will tell you at the end of the year, your financial statement, who still owes you money. But I suddenly realised it was a real pivotal moment for me. I was like, I'm going to stop looking at profit and I'm going to start looking after when we're getting paid and when we're paying people. And that then all of a sudden made me manage the business in a very, very different way. So now I spend even now today in my own business, I spend quite a lot of time checking my cash flow. So I'm always on top of my credit control. My clients will be like, I'm going to pay. And I'm like, well, I know you are, but I've got to show you that I'm on this, because cash is always what's going to kill your business. You know that. You've seen it numerous times with your clients. And I've seen it. I've seen companies sit there and you think they're struggling. They are struggling because cash is crippling them.
It's really interesting. I did a money mindset challenge. I don't think I paid. I don't think I charged for it. And I think that was a mistake, not charging for it. But there was this fabulous challenge, and one of the women that took part hated invoicing. So
Wow.
so actually, her cash really improved in the period of this challenge, because I was getting them to they had to do something every day.
Yeah.
So she was invoicing, and this one particular invoice, and this is what I think is so incredible when we really work on our money mindset. She invoiced, it was uncomfortable, and I think there was like a 14-day period for pay, and she needed the money to come in, but she knew it wouldn't because it was a 14-day payment terms. They paid within 24 hours, on top of which somebody that she'd forgotten she had invoiced from some time ago, that money came in as well. I think there is a real power in taking control of our money, because results happen, and sometimes they happen quite magically.
Yeah, and the interesting thing about invoicing is, I say this to quite a few people, invoicing is your gold star, right?
Yes.
So you've done the work, done all that hard work, you've done the work winning the client, getting the client on board, doing your engagement, actually performing the project work or whatever it is.
Yeah.
But invoice is you going, well done me, I can get my money now, I can invoice you for my money. So I always say that's your gold star. But it's amazing how many people, business owners hate doing that invoicing. And I'm like, please do your invoicing, because if you don't invoice quickly, there are people out there, and we've all had them, that will go, oh, right, they're not on their invoicing. So if they're not, they'll never chase you, and then you'll leave it a few days, a few more, and then you'll invoice perhaps 2 weeks later. If the client has got the wrong mindset, the mindset you don't work in, they will see that as a sign of weakness, that you're not over your money, and then they'll go, well, I'll leave it, I'll pay when I like.
I think there's another challenge, isn't there? If you don't invoice on time for yourself on time, and when the work is finished, you leave it a couple of weeks, and then it's embarrassing. So you might
Absolutely.
a few more weeks, and now you look, now it feels really awkward. And then you finally invoice, and they come back and say, I'm really sorry, but we've got a cash flow problem right now. So if you'd invoiced then, you would have got paid. So I think for me, it really is about taking control of your money and finding ways. And just one of the things that I used to hate doing, I'm automate nearly everything now in my business, so I don't have to chase people for money, because it all happens. But
Good.
one of the things I hated doing was chasing when it wasn't paid. And there's just so many things that you could do. And I was like, hang on a minute.
Absolutely.
I think Xero can do that for me.
It can.
And it can. And guess what? It works.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it was finding ways. And then another thing I did as well was, okay, I need to get on this. I do need to chase people. And I made it part of a process. And the minute I made it part of a process, I did it. And to be fair, in my whole 11 years, I think I've had two clients that, for whatever reasons, haven't continued with me.
And this is my real soapbox subject, right? It really upsets me when people, I know, not for me necessarily. Of course, it upsets me if people don't pay us, because no one likes that. But when I see clients with balances on their accounts, which are 3-4 months old, and they're not being paid, I'm like, this is your money. Yeah. This is, you have worked for this money. This is owed to you. They need to pay you. And it really, really winds me up, because people are like, I don't really like doing it. And I'm like, okay, so, would you, for instance, open your front door and say, come and take my kitchen table, please? Just it. And they're like, no, of course I wouldn't. I said, so why are you letting them come in your front door and take your money? Because they're not giving it to you, and they owe it to you. And it really, really upsets me. I don't get upset with the client. I just get incredibly frustrated that people see it as something to be embarrassed about. And actually, the best thing for credit control is communication.
Yeah.
It's not about being that, pay me now or I'm going to set my dog on you. It's about setting those terms, sending your invoice, and at the bottom, having a due date. And then if they haven't paid by the due date, like you say, Xero can send them an automation on that pay date, or whenever you like. It can be something as simple. And I always say, it's just a gentle nudge.
Yeah.
this invoice is now due for payment. And then 9 times out of 10, they're going to pay. But if you put in there that you're going to follow in 7 days, follow on 7 days. Because if you don't, those people that are wheedling in are going to think they're not really on it. They're not really that interested. I'll leave it another couple of days. 7 days later, you chase them again. And if you say pay by return, chase them on the return.
It's really interesting. And I think for me, it always comes back to mindset as well. I had a few, and as I say, this was right at the beginning, and I was like always having to chase them. And then I had to step back and I was like, hang on a minute, how quickly do I pay?
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, so what I was doing is I was waiting till 28 days, 14 days, whatever it was, and I was paying.
Yeah.
I'm going to start paying everyone when I receive that invoice.
Mm.
And so I did. And what happened is people started to pay me when they received the invoice, even though they didn't know what I was doing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Whatever. But it's that energetics. It was about me saying, no, I want to be really good about this and I want to pay on return. So, and it seemed to change the energy around it.
Absolutely. And I think if you can't pay someone, there's going to be times where you can't pay someone, communicate to that person. There might be a problem with me paying this bill this month. It's because of X, Y, Z. But I promise you, when that's resolved, you will be paid. Yeah. And everyone 9 times out of 10 will go, God, thanks so much for letting me know, because then I won't chase you and then we can have a chat about it. The other tip I would say as well, this works wonders, is when you take on a new client, be super watertight. So invoice as soon as the work's complete, chase them on that due date, chase them again, because when they see for the first time financial interaction with you that you are completely on it, they won't ever delay again, because there's no point she's going to be up. They're on it. So there's no point me trying to wheedle out another couple of days. She's going to chase me. And you only have to do that a few cycles, and then people fall into the routine of what your credit control is. But never, ever, I mean, this, and it's easy for me to say, but, and I learned this in the credit control, I turned into an absolute Rottweiler, and people know this now with me. And that's what my nickname has been actually in when I've done credit control, is I'm going to pay Laura because she's an absolute Rottweiler. Thank you very much. I'll take that. You know, and I learned that in the credit crunch, was I turned into a Rottweiler, because I was like, this is boom or bust, guys. If you don't pay us, we are going under, you know. And that, when you've got the survival thirst, you do it. Yeah. And what you want to do is make sure you don't get into a survival situation, that it's just part of your day-to-day. And Xero will, I mean, the software is amazing now, you know this. Xero will do that. It'll automate it and do it for you.
I think just picking up on that point, you know, you used the new client scenario. It is about, you know, from a coaching point of view and working with my clients, value yourself.
Absolutely.
Value yourself here, because if you don't, the client won't. And then it changes the relationship. So value yourself and invoice and chase and get that money in. And actually that creates a really strong relationship.
It does. And no client wants to be sat there saying, oh God, I haven't had that invoice yet. Oh my goodness, the next month's going to be due, and the next, and then they're saying, well, I'm going to have to pay 3 months. Most clients want to be in a situation where they know exactly where they are with their invoicing. They want to receive their invoice on time and they want to pay it. But there'll be a few that don't. That's their choice. It's just the way they run their lives. But if you're watertight with your clients, A, they will appreciate it, and B, they'll accept and get used to your culture. If they don't, then it's ta-ra, you know, bye-bye. But at least you're being true to yourself, and you're valuing what you do, and you're giving yourself that gold star. You know, hey, here's my invoice, I've done your work. And then it's like, brilliant, they've paid. Like your client that all of a sudden got 2 lots of payments in one day. Like, how does this happen? Well, it happened because you did it.
Yeah, I like that gold star. I don't know how I'm going to do that, because everything's automated, and I don't feel I want to physically raise something and go, yes. Well.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Sometimes there is that, you know, a lot of all of our invoicing is raised automatically, but then I do, before I send it out, I do a check of every single one, because there's often little bits to add, or there's bits to take off, or stuff like that. So I think at that stage, my gold star is when I total it up and look at what I'm invoicing that month. that's my gold star. Because for me, I go, brilliant, I can pay all my staff, I can pay my VAT, I can pay out payroll liabilities, I can put some savings to corporation tax, and I can pay all my suppliers. So that's my gold star.
Yeah. Your third share on your notes was, we can all learn bookkeeping if we wanted to. The real question is, as a business owner, do you really want to? And we talked about that at the beginning, didn't we?
Yeah, absolutely. Quite. And I think what breaks my heart more than anything is when I meet a new client and I'll say, also, what have you been doing so far? And they'll say those words and my heart sinks. They say, well, I've been doing it myself, but they've got a few problems. And I think, you know what? I happily look and correct those accounts for you. But the heartbreaking moment for me is when I realise that's going to take 10 hours for me to correct that, or 5 or 2 or 3 or 4, whatever it's going to take to correct it is going to be way more than if you'd paid us for an hour a month to do it for you in the first place. And that's, I think there's a bit of a dichotomy with these softwares, is that we're all sold the dream of these softwares doing it for you, and they do an awful lot. But the basics of double entry bookkeeping are still underneath there. And if you have a go and you don't get this bit right, they're going to be a mess. So somewhere along the line, you've either got to learn the bookkeeping to correct it, or you've got to pay someone to correct it. You might be lucky enough to find a bookkeeper who will do it for you before you find an accountant. If you find a bookkeeper and get a bookkeeping hourly rate, it's going to be a lot kinder than finding an accountant and them charging you an accountant rate. So that's when my heart really breaks. I think, I'm going to have to charge you a ton of cash to do this, when actually we could have done it for you an hour a month in the first place.
When I first started out, one of my biggest bugbears was clients. And believe it or not, I used to look after people's zeros because I could just do my own. They're like, oh, can you have a look at it? And so
Yeah, sure.
the limit to what I could do, admittedly.
Yeah.
I think the thing that upset me the most, I had a really good friend, and every year I'd be going in and trying to help her sort out her zero in preparation for the accountant. It was, the software was sold to her as a way of saving money, but it wasn't saving her money because there was no training behind it. She didn't understand the double entry. And, you know, I've certainly done double entry and then gone, oh, I've made that's wrong. And then gone, now I've made that doubly worse. I need to work it back out because that's not my natural state. But I think that, she wasn't the only one. I was just, oh my goodness, you've been sold this. Either learn how to use it or get someone to use it, because you're just creating more and more problems.
Yeah.
Particularly what was happening as well is I could see that because it was challenging, it wasn't their zone of genius, they weren't using the valuable information, and actually the information would have been wrong anyway.
Yeah, absolutely.
That was one of my real growth, and I see it. I don't see it anymore.
Good.
Something I used to see 10 years ago, saw it all the time.
Yeah, and I think, you know, the bigger the business, the more difficult it gets. You know, if I give you a small pot of coloured Smarties, you're going to sort them in seconds. If I give you a bucket of coloured Smarties mixed together, it's going to take you years. And I get those buckets of coloured Smarties regularly of a business that is, honestly, you look at it and you go, my God, you know, this is a great idea. Look at the money coming in. But it's like that swan on the water. The business on top is all smooth and they are flying. The swan looks amazing. Underneath, it's a pile of mixed coloured Smarties because the software has been used incorrectly. And then, I mean, I've been in the situation where, well, we have as a company where we've looked at a client's zero and said, we can't work with this. It's more cost effective for you to start again with a new zero software subscription, and us start from the beginning than untie it all.
Wow.
I mean, obviously you've got to be incredibly careful because of reporting deadlines and what's been reported previously and where the accounts end. But actually, for that client, they were like, just do it, because I can't deal with the stress anymore of looking at these accounts and knowing they're wrong. And they were, beyond wrong. And it was more cost effective just to start again. And that still happens now.
What I'm loving about talking to you is the analogies. You break it down, you make it really simple to understand. So for me, the message is always, if you're going to outsource this, find someone who will talk your language, who you
Yeah,
can connect with, who you can build a relationship with. Because I'm going to take a wild guess, just like me, you want your clients to thrive. You want your clients to be successful.
absolutely.
Relationship. So it's
Yeah.
finding the right people, isn't it, to help you on that journey?
It is. And one of the biggest satisfactions I have is when I say goodbye to a client because they've grown so big that they need an accounts department.
Ooh.
That, and I've had that happen a couple of times, and they always think, oh God, they Laura, we need to have a conversation. I'm thinking, oh my goodness, what have we done wrong? They're like, we've grown so much that we think it's time we didn't outsource. I'm like, hallelujah, fantastic. This is brilliant, because they've grown and they've developed and they're ready to be bigger. And that's the biggest success story for me. Yeah, well, you lose the business, but hey, there's plenty more in the pipeline that's going to come up and take that place because there's enough work to go around. So, you want your clients to thrive. You want them to do well. You want them to understand. Teresa, my business partner, is the same with her, in terms of her accountancy and her being a chartered accountant. She wants her clients to understand. And, the best thing I say to all of our clients when I'm doing anything to do with their taxes, and I say, can you authorize us to submit this for you? P.S. If anything doesn't look right, please ask me. I'd rather than turn around and say, what the hell is that doing in there? And me check it instead of them going, oh, I'm sure it must be right. Because everyone makes mistakes and sometimes people's understandings are different. So I'll go, well, actually, isn't that the laptop that we discussed? And they go, no, that's a different one. That shouldn't be there. And you're like, brilliant, great, correct it now. So it's a working relationship. The best thing about the accounting revolution, I still can't believe that I'm saying the word revolution with the word accounting in this day and age, because it really has over, the software revolution, is that culture of rear view mirror accounting. Let me tell you today how you did 2 years ago. I don't really care, and the closed door element of accounting, like, oh, I just give that to my accountant and then they tell me a figure to pay. That is done and dusted. And we don't always get it right, of course we don't, but we strive to be open and transparent about the figures that are in front of us. And those figures are available to every business owner through the software. And that's the beauty. That is the beauty. And like, you with your clients, you can say, well, okay, show me a zero. Show me how you're doing. And immediately you can look, instead of your client going, well, I've got the accounts from 2022, 23, somewhere, they're on paper. I'll ring my account. They'll send me a copy. Those days are gone. And if any of your clients, anyone's watching this and thinking, actually, I still get paper accounts to sign off, or I still don't, know what I did 12 months ago, forget it. Ask for something different, because the software, the fintech revolution around accounting and finance is immense. And those days are over.
I wonder also if this accounting revolution and the software that's now available, whether that's what's enabled bookkeepers and accountants to feel like they're more approachable, because they're not bogged down in all of this. It's all available to them at their fingertips. And I know whenever I speak to my accountant, and we happen to be doing end of year, a bit slow this year for a particular reason, nothing to do with like the accounts not being ready. And it's like, it's really great because and I go, have you got it? She goes, yeah, I've got it open. And she's looking at it and I'm looking at it, and, she questions it. And I think because they're not bogged down in this paper type thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
I think that has made a difference. And, going back to, talking about you there and the analogy, and, I can only imagine how, if I was your client, it would be like, I think I need to speak to Laura. And I know and I'm not your client, and I have gone, oh, I wonder if Laura knows the answer to that.
Yeah.
And I've contacted you, and I think that's what's key. If you are going to have a bookkeeper and or accountant, you need to have a really good relationship and know that you can pick up the phone and know that whatever you ask, it is not a silly question.
It's never a silly question. And, I taught accounting for 5 years. I put myself in that situation of being able to teach people who were like me in the beginning of just not getting it. And there is no such thing as a silly question. And what I always used to, one of my common things you say to my students when they said, this is really hard, I can't do it. And I was like, stop. Let's break that sentence down. I want you to delete that last bit. And I'm going to tell you, it is really hard because accounting's hard, not because you can't do it. So actually what you want is someone who understands accounting that you can approach to say, I don't really get this, you know. And I've got WhatsApp groups galore with loads of clients, because and they'll just in the morning go, Laura, I've put this up, or this is there, or what's this, you know. And there's never a silly question. And I'm sure, you know, we don't always get it right. No company always gets it right. There's always room for improvement. And I'm sure we've got clients that we can communicate more with, or in a different way, but hopefully they know they can just email and say, I'm not sure, can you help? You know, what is this?
Just wanted to come back to something that I mentioned at the beginning when I was introducing you, and you also offer training.
Yes.
You never find
Yeah.
a piece of paper. Yes. What I was going to say is that training only available to people that you know, your client base, or if there's somebody out there in the UK, if you're not in the UK, not sure Laura's your right person, because your tax laws and everything else will be different.
Oh my goodness, yeah.
You know, if they're going, actually, I'd like to understand Xero more. I'd like to understand what reports I can get. I'd like to get. Could anyone get in touch with you?
Absolutely. And that is, we have training owning clients. So, you know, there's people that approach us and say, I've got an accounts team, we've just gone over to Xero, we don't really know what we're doing. We're used to Sage Desktop. And I'm like, oh, right, okay, I've been there, I've done that. I was Sage Desktop, now I'm doing Xero. So then we build up a training program. You know, I've got clients that are, you know, a training retainer, that they know that throughout the month they can have an hour's online session plus telephone calls for whatever they might need. You know, so when software cloud accounting came out, there was a whole raft of bookkeepers and accountants going, well, that's it then, you know, you're taking us out of a job. Absolute nonsense. All it's done is change the job. It's changed what we need to do to facilitate business owners to know about their money. And it's about training, it's about analysis, it's about us being able to step away, because we used to sit there and have to, you know, physically and manually enter £3.06 stationery. Well, the software does that. So now you look at it and go, that's weird. Last year they only spent 200 quid on stationery. This year it's 1,200 quid. What's gone wrong? So you can analyze and pick up before you hand over. So the work's changed. And training for me is a massive part, because training allows people to go away with the software and go, right, now I know what I'm doing. And I've had a couple of arguments with people, bookkeepers, going, well, you're doing yourself out of a job. I'm like, am I? I don't think we are. I think we're empowering business owners to be in control of their figures. And I think when they've got an issue, they'll come back to me to say, can you help me with this issue? I don't think that's doing us out of work.
It's a win-win.
It is a win-win. And there's always going to be work out there. You know, HMRC is driving this digital agenda, and that, you know, it's changing. The world is changing, and the HMRC world is changing. And in 2 years, we're going to have, you know, income tax for self-assessment going digital. So, you know, the work is there. There's more than enough work to go around for everyone to have a slice of the pie. You know, it's about the nature of the work that we're all doing. And the nature of the work now is far more exciting than it was 20 years ago when I started and I was being rapped on the knuckles with a ruler for entering something incorrectly in Sage, you know, a number.
Accounting's got exciting.
It has got exciting.
So if anybody is out there watching right now and is getting excited, or is thinking, oh, I need to speak to Laura, I think she's going to be able to help me, or, you know, what's the best way of them doing that, basically?
So I'm active on LinkedIn. So if they're on LinkedIn, they can always drop me a message there and connect with me. We've got a Facebook page as well, so they can always Facebook message me if that's their preferred method. Our website is up and running. My email address is on there. And it's literally is just laura@nowaccounting.co.uk. Telephone calls always welcome, so they can ring me on my mobile. I can't always take calls. That's the slight issue, because meetings and whatnot. So I can't always pick up. But yeah, online. And then what I would say to that person is, speak to me, get booked in, 45-minute online chat like this. Tell me what it is you're worried about. Tell me what it is that you've got a query about. I'm quite happy to say that's so easily resolvable. It's going to it's going to be you and me for half an hour going through that. You're going to be sorted for life. I know, and I am honest, and sometimes I will go, that sounds tricky, or there's this issue, or there's that issue. And equally, I'm very honest to go, I don't know about that, but I'll find out for you.
I love that. I will make sure that all those contact details are below this video so everyone can get in touch with you.
Please do.
I have loved talking to you.
Likewise.
Really key messages, understanding the difference between an accountant and a bookkeeper.
And with that as well, always ask for qualifications. If you are meeting someone and if you've got a limited company account and you want limited company accounts doing, ask to see that person's qualifications. Ask to see their professional body registration, because you need to know that they have done qualifications that mean they understand company tax. That's my big thing. Ask to see qualifications.
Okay, everyone, did you get that? So understand difference between bookkeeper and accountant, and deciding which you need, even if you start with the bookkeeper, because then
absolutely.
And I have a feeling that any bookkeeper worth their weight in salt will be able to push you in the right direction of accountant who must be qualified, and you must ask to see their qualifications.
Yes, absolutely.
Get confident with numbers, people.
Yes.
They are so valuable. They are not scary, and there are fabulous people like Laura around who will really, really help you. And for crying out loud, invoice, 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 and follow the process.
Invoice, chase. Yeah.
It has been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much.
You're more than welcome.